But what about Susie Pooh and other nitpicks from the Stranger Things finale? Look, I'm gonna do a little bait and switch here because I'm not really gonna nitpick the finale because I really enjoyed it and I thought it was phenomenal. And I think we're gonna look back and see it as one of the top five finales on TV. Um, and maybe the top five series going forward. It was not perfect. Nothing is perfect, people, and it's okay to be disappointed and frustrated if your favorite characters didn't show up for the finale. Someone like Susie Poo, if she was your favorite, I'm sorry. We all enjoy the never ending story. But I can almost, the reason I put this up there is because I can almost imagine in the upcoming weeks, there's going to be people nitpicking an almost perfect finale by coming in with hot takes on things like, what happened to Susie Poo? If she was so important to Dusty Buns, why isn't she making an appearance in the finale? And here's my take on this from a Gen X person. Listen, the people in our lives who meant a lot to us, and maybe they were our besties that we met in summer camp, or maybe they were our besties in school and they moved away. Guess what, guys? Before the internet, we would promise to write to them. We would promise to call them, but then our parents would cut that off because long distance calling was so expensive. And over time, we would get caught up in our own lives, make new friends, and that person, we wouldn't see them again till sometime in our mid 40s when this thing called Facebook appeared and we started Google, we started searching for the people from our youth and seeing what ended up with them. So this is actually very realistic that somebody like Susie Poo could be an important part of Dusty Bun's life. And also, he went through a huge change. He's not the same Dusty Buns. I don't think that Susie Poo would necessarily like the Dustin who at graduation, took off his graduation robe, was wearing the Hellfire shirt, and showed his Eddie side, his more rebellious side, and said kind of, screw you to authority. So I think that really makes a lot of sense to me. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see some hot takes on what about this person? What about this person? What about this person? Listen, there were a lot of people in this cast and a lot of stories to wrap up. So I'm okay with certain people being left behind in the epilogue because I wanted to see our main characters get their due. Now, the other thing is, I keep going back to, with all this nitpicking, I feel like maybe the younger generations, and this is no thing on you guys, is that like you kind of grown up with the internet again, where everything is nitpicked apart, criticized, we try to find the negative. So like we're no longer like looking at things from a craft perspective or story perspective. We're saying, well, that sucked. When I'm telling you, like, this is what I do for a living. I'm a story coach. My company is called Story Nerd. I analyze scripts from a mathematical viewpoint, and I'm often looking for where it doesn't work. And I can tell you that this story works really well. And again, I was really viewing it from an emotional level, and I'm going to go back and analyze it, and maybe I'll have some notes. But right now, I don't have any notes because they kept me emotionally in the story. So I wasn't intellectualizing it because that's what their job was to do, to make me forget that they put all this effort into telling this story, that there's math behind it. So I was really happy with that. The other thing I noticed was that there really seemed to be a lot of Stand By Me in this finale. And it's interesting with everything that went down with Rob Reiner recently. It was a huge loss. I actually down with my kids during the holidays. We watched Stand By Me, and I was cracking up because I forgot that line that Derek keeps saying, which is my fat one, is from Stand By Me. So that was great to see that. And then we have the ending where sort of we have Mike, the storyteller, being like Gordy and Stand By Me, and he being the glue that keeps this group together, but also realizing this is like just a moment in time. We've got the older group of teenagers promising that they're going to stay in touch, and we know that, like, as Gen X knows, that's most likely not going to happen because we didn't have an internet. We are not going to send letters. We are not going to be able to afford long distance calls. And then we've got the younger generation kind of coming up and starting D&D, and they're really close. And that's like the past, present, and future that we're seeing. So that was the main message of Stand By Me, which is like the friends that you make at 12 and 13 years old are the best friends of your life. And guess what? It doesn't last. It's like a blink in time. Time goes on, you lose touch, you go your own ways. The things that brought you together when you were kids, like playing games, you know, that's not the thick glue that's going to keep you together when you're adults. So overall, I thought it was really great, but I do hear a lot of nitpicking. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. And all I'm saying is, if your favorite character didn't end up the way you wanted, I understand the disappointment and frustration. I can tell you that I'm not necessarily happy what happened to Elle, but I predicted it would happen because that makes sense story-wise for this character. And I look at story. I look at story, what makes sense. I also go back to what Hopper taught Elle when he talked about half happy. Somebody else mentioned this on TikTok. It's like a compromise. I think the Duffer brothers did a compromise. It's better for us all to be half happy than for us to be all mad, or half of us happy, half of us mad. So I'm not happy about what happened to Elle, or that she doesn't get her happy ending, but I'm happy overall that it makes made sense story wise that that happened and that the rest of our people were saved. So keep. I'm really interested to hear what the nitpicks are, but I hope people understand that this is one of the best series finales we've seen, and it's going to be on a bunch of top lists for decades to come. So these nitpicks aren't going to really matter that much, but I get that's what we do here. So I will just be sitting here chuckling because at the end of the day, I know the story was solid. I know the craft is solid. I know the themes are solid. I know the character works were solid. And nitpicking about some minor things is not going to change that.